Okay, hi everyone, it's me. And if you like my channel, please like and subscribe. There's a notifications bell down in the corner that will allow you to know when I'm going live. With that being said, if you see that I went live and the video was removed, usually it's because I was really tired or not feeling well when I did it, and that I just am not comfortable knowing when I'm really tired to have the ability to really connect and explain in a manner what is going on. So, with that being said, I try not to do it, but last night I was just too exhausted to talk intelligently about anything. So, I wanted to talk about our outreach yesterday. On Sundays, we go out and we do what's called harm reduction. And it's let me clarify, substance abuse harm reduction. And when we think about what is harm reduction, reducing harm in any situation, whether that be personal or whether that be societal. And what it does is it takes humans as they are and it says, in this situation, what can we do to reduce harm to the person and with the public society? And so what we do is we hand out food because hunger and reducing hunger is definitely harm reduction. We hand out needles. And the reason for, and I want to explain why, okay? Because I'll be honest, before I started studying and before I was introduced to this world of data, I didn't understand. And even after knowing all of that and doing the reading and all of that, taking the classes, I to be there and do it gave me a whole nother perspective as well. And it was able to tie in the information I had to the information I was seeing and make connections. So I want to kind of explain some of these things and why we do it. Okay, needle issue. We know that when persons are abusing substances, that these have effects beyond the substance they're using. And one of those things is transmission of diseases. Another thing is infections. There is a whole host of things. So, by handing out clean needles, we are reducing the amount of diseases that are passed by one person to another. And this is important in a societal and public health aspect, whereas if the thing is, people do use needles. It is not, the whole work is not about whether they should or they shouldn't. I think we can all agree, even people using, that it's it's not a good thing and people shouldn't, but they do. So we need to address things as how they are. And so we know that with dirty needles, we have transmission of disease, and that disease does not care whether any other person is a substance abuser or not. So those things can be transmitted long outside the actual act. So it's really a public health issue. And the collection, a lot of people don't understand as well that there are many, many users that try not to drop their things on the ground or, you know, dispose of things in an unhealthy manner. But as we know from human behavior, that humans produce trash. And whether that be discarded biohazard material or whether that be, which plastic is, we discard tons of plastic. The thing that when it's up front in our faces, these societal ills, such as garbage. That's why we started landfills. That's why we started shipping things outside the country. It's really an issue of not wanting to see it. So by collecting these needles, like yesterday, collected almost 800 needles. That is 800 needles that are no longer on our streets, in our parks, being disposed of in our public facilities. This is important work. So we know that if we place places to dispose of these things more and more, just like when we place trash receptacles, we see a decrease in the trash on the street. Okay? Human behavior goes that if there's not trash receptacles, trash piles up because humans will just discard it. And I'm not saying all humans, I'm saying that human behavior on a large scale says that if there are not proper materials for disposal or receptacles, we do not act in a healthy manner. So, and then that's those of us who are able to even think of ways to dispose of trash if those were acceptable. And then you got to think about, okay, what about somebody whose mind is being consumed by a substance? And so we need to make those things, needle disposal systems, things like that readily available because it will become the norm for people to dispose of those things when they are using. We're not saying that the norm will become everybody's using. We're saying that the norm will become people disposing of those things. Hi, Megan. So on to the next thing. So we talked about food. We've talked about needles. Let's talk about Narcan. Okay. Handed out 12 Narcan yesterday, and there were reported 3 ODs. So we know that what we hand out literally saves lives. And it's just such an amazing thing to know that this is somebody's family member. And even not whether they have family, whether they have friends or whatever, this is a human life that has worth just in being. And so we don't want people dying. Like that is the whole thing of harm reduction. Do we know people die? Yes. Do we want them to die? No. Can we prevent part of the harm? Yes. And so we got to look at ways to do that. Hi, Losi. I'm doing well. Today is a rest day because I did outreach yesterday and I have a whole week planned full of different activities and medical appointments and everything else. So, but back to harm reduction, another aspect of that, and each harm reduction outreach is a little different as to what they provide. I know yesterday we also provided wound care, and that's really important. You see these people, people don't want to be in these positions of vulnerability, and I think so many times when a person looks at somebody, thank you, Losi. When a person looks at things like this, they say, well, I was raised that. And we forget that not everybody was raised the way you are, but that we have to really cut down on that because when we look and we say, well, I was raised this way, you don't, okay, so that's you. But I know people that were raised in complete substance abuse situations. And if they commit a crime after crime, like say they murder people, they don't get to say, well, I was raised, because we expect people to change and grow and process things outside of the way they were raised. We want people to come together and understand the whole. So I think that, it's very, very important to catch ourselves. And even, and as I do this, where it becomes, where I try to compare things that are apples and oranges. And I can't do that. I have to understand that there's a larger set out there and that we have to accept that people have to grow and change and become better despite the way they were raised. And we can't judge people based on the way we were raised. And I say that from a deeply personal spot Of course, because I was raised in a family full of dysfunction, abuse, and substance abuse, and then foster care, and then, all of these different factors. And I'm not going to go out and do horrific things and say, well, that's the way I was raised. It's not acceptable. It wouldn't be acceptable. I do know that adverse childhood experiences play a part into the things that have happened, and my chances of developing different diseases, and the physiological changes and the mental illness associated and the brain changes. I'm aware of all of that, but I know that my responsibility is to understand that, really deeply understand that, and work to be better, and not put my experiences on other people, because none of us, I know that I, especially before, would like to say, well, if I was in that situation, I would A, B, or C. And what I've realized is I had no idea what I would do in a situation like living under a bridge, because I had never been there. I didn't know what it was like. I could never have said I would do this or do that. I would have thought that I would have done things a different way, because I would have thought things were completely different based on the lifestyle I had, you know? So there's definitely just a bunch of learning that's going on. And I am so happy to be really promoting nonprofits that I believe in, doing outreach myself, and now onto photography. And as a announcement, ah, all photography sessions of mine, 20% of all proceeds will go and be split between these four nonprofits: One Health Clinic, Seattle Dogs Homeless Program with Laura, of course, Seattle Outreach, a Seattle Homeless Outreach. They do an amazing job hiking up in, getting up into the encampments. They're awesome. And Seattle Harm Reduction Coalition. Um, so I really believe that these reach the scope of what we need in building solutions. So I feel that the best way to do that is to use my skill sets and what I do to also promote that in any way I'm out in the world. So, are there any questions? Does anybody have anything to say? Or are we all just doing amazing? Everybody? Okay. So, I'm going to end it with that. And I might be on later if Dee and Devin come over. I ordered them somebody bought the shoes off my Amazon wish list, and so I'm excited to give them their new shoes because it's such a big deal out there, and got a few pairs of socks for them as well. So I wish you guys all the best, sending tons of love, and thank you, Megan. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.